Now, remember that everybody wants to know more about manifesting. What is manifesting? Okay, now most people don't understand what is the role of the dog God power about source in terms of manifesting. First of all, religion teaches us as God is within us, that we are a spark of God, that right, that God lives within us, right? So, but then that concept is kind of hard to understand because we have the worship gene. The worship gene simply forces you or focus you into seeking something to worship, something outside of you, not understanding who you are. However, in the Kabbalion teachings, it runs it down very nicely, and you get to understand where does the rest of humanity, the rest of creation fall in terms of Sof or in the divine spark, as mentioned in the Kabbalion teachings. So each sphere represents a divine aspects of consciousness, right? Such as wisdom, understanding, mercy, beauty, power, and manifestation. Manifestation meaning creation, right? The three rhymes existence. Okay, and I remember we speak about three rhyme existence, talking about the divine, the spiritual as well, and then the last one is divine, the spiritual, and we have a last one which is basically the physical world. So how these little rhymes connect to each other, how do they speak to each other? So number one, the divine, which is SOF, Sof or N, okay, in the Kabbalion teachings, the divine world, pure source beyond the form or limitation. So as human beings, it's way, 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 way out of our understanding. That divine consciousness is expansive. It's beyond form or limitation, right? Then the spiritual or the mental world, where divine ideas and archetypes form. Divine ideas and archetypes form in the spiritual world, in the mental world. Okay. And then we get the last part where we are connected and zoned into as spiritual beings, spirits having a human experience. We are zoned in or anchored into the physical world. Let's see here. Right. Okay, so let's go. So to give you that other one, just 1 minute, another page. I just made some notes just to guide me, right? As I am also talking about this topic, I'm also learning more about it because I first came across the Kabbalah teachings a while ago. And yeah, at that time, it seemed very complex to me because I was still at the beginning of my spiritual journey. I was still at that very religious way of thinking, right? So it wasn't very easy for me to understand. But now I find years later, I'm beginning to really understand it more better because it falls in line to all my beliefs anyway, in terms of spirituality. The physical world, where energy crystallizes into matter, into 3D reality. Remember, I mentioned example like before, like how you can get spirit and you get physical things. Like example thing, if you boil water, you get steam, right? That's still water, but it's in another form, okay? And if you put it in a fridge, the water in the fridge, cool it down, put in the fridge, after a couple of hours, it becomes ice. That's another form of water. It is still water, but it's another form. Okay, so spirits and physical things. That actually explains how we are connected to the divine spirit because we are the crystallization of spirits. We in a physical form, but we still spirits. We're just accommodating a physical entity, an avatar, a body, right? A temple. So the physical world, as I said, is where energy crystallizes into the 3D reality. Everything that exists flows inward from the infinite. Everything that exists downward from the infinite being God above, right? And everything that comes from there flows down into the physical. But it's all coming from divine source, that divine energy. Right. So let's talk more about the goal, the union and the divine, the union with the divine, in other words. The union that we need as human beings to connect with the divine, because we are spirits having a human experience. It's all about remembrance, remembering who you are. Okay, that you're a child of the light from divine consciousness. The goal here, the union with the divine. Kabbalah teaches that every human soul, including you and me and everybody else, carries a divine spark, just as taught in Christianity. You see, there's some parallels here as well. So Kabbalah teaches that every human soul carries divine spark, a fragment of infinite light, also known as Ein Sof. Remember that this is the universe of light. All right. Our purpose is to awaken the light within ourselves, to refine our ego, to refine it, not kill it, but to refine it and return into unity with Source. So it's not about killing your ego, it's about refining and making it work for your spiritual high self, in other words. You understand? This process is sometimes called tikkun, or spiritual correction or restoration. Right? Since we were born, we came in here in families, we were indoctrinated. We accepted the veil of forgetfulness as part of the game. When you're in the game, you forget everything, then you get re-indoctrinated in terms of all the physical things, this third world reality. Okay? We get indoctrinated. Right? But